In ancient India, in the kingdom of Surasena, there lived a king by the name of Chitraketu. Chitraketu was a great ruler and exercised great power over his kingdom. He had everything: wealth, power, a vast empire. Yet none of it mattered because he had lost his only son. Day and night he wandered his palace, tormented by grief. Why, he cried, why must everything I love be taken away from me? One day, the great sage Narada arrived in Chitraketu's kingdom. He saw the king suffering and spoke with a powerful voice. O king, you mourn for that which is impermanent, but I can show you the path beyond sorrow. Would you dare to see the truth beyond this world? The king, desperate for answers, bowed to the sage. And so, Narada initiated him into a powerful mantra, a sacred sound that could unlock the mysteries of existence. It is believed that as a result of his deep meditation on that mantra, Chitraketu gained mastery of his subtle body, or Sūkshma Sharīra, a luminous form which arose from his physical body. He had now left his physical body behind. In his subtle body, Chitraketu then roamed across celestial realms and witnessed the higher dimensions of existence. He met divine beings and learned profound truths about the transient nature of life. How our life on this planet is only a short glimpse of the infinitude of our souls in the world, and hence how little our physical deaths really matter in the grand scheme of things. With this newfound wisdom, Chitraketu returned to his body and ruled wisely, attaining again his long-lost happiness. Chitraketu's story is given in the 6th canto of the Bhagavad Purana, one of the most important and influential scriptures of devotional Hinduism. But is his story just a feel-good tale? Or did the ancient Indians really discover the secrets of out-of-body travel? The out-of-body experience of Chitraketu may be counted as an instance of astral projection, a phenomenon recorded in both Eastern and Western mysticism, where a person may experience floating beyond their bodies and gaining some spiritual knowledge in such states. Indeed, in our past video on near-death experiences, we had discussed how individuals experience floating above their bodies, witnessing their own bodies from above, and gaining spiritual knowledge in that state. In this video, we will discuss the experience of astral projection and the documentation of this practice in spiritual texts across the globe. Later in this video, we will also discuss out-of-body experiences as an outcome of yoga, as per medieval yogic texts. In ancient Hindu texts, we find mention of 3 different bodies lying within ourselves. Firstly, we have the Sthūla Sharīra, or gross body, which is the physical body with which most of us ignorantly tend to identify ourselves. The second body is the Sūkshma Sharīra, or subtle body, which includes the mind, intellect, ego, as well as the prāna, or life force. From Chitraketu's story, we know it is the Sūkshma Sharīra which is usually associated with astral travel. The third and final body is the causal body, or Kāraṇa Sharīra, which is the deep unconscious level of the body and acts as a storehouse of our past actions, karma. Astral projection is often associated with the Sūkshma Sharīra, subtle body, which is believed to separate from the Sthūla Sharīra, physical body, under certain conditions like deep meditation, yogic practices, or at the time of death. Several ancient texts mention this ability of the subtle body to move beyond the physical form. For example, in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, which is one of the oldest and largest of the Upanishadic texts, a verse states as follows: just as a large fish swims alternately to both banks of the river, so does the self move between walking and dream states. How does this verse relate to the concept of astral projection? Here it is evident that the ancient Vedic rishis who realized the truths of the Upanishads believed that the self, or Atma, traveled through the different states of waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. For example, in our previous video on the Mandukya Upanishad, we had discussed how the self inhabits the 4 different states. While 3 of these states correspond to the waking, dreaming, and deep sleep, It is in the fourth immeasurable state of Turiya that the self realizes its own infinitude. But it is possible at the same time for the self to realize that it is not one with the body. Once it gains this realization, the self can then go beyond the body, while the body remains prone and asleep. This is suggested by another verse from the Chanda Yoga Upanishad. The self, Atma, travels from the dreaming body and moves to distant places, unrestrained by the physical form. Later in this video, we will highlight how astral travel was believed to be a yogic power or siddhi, which was highlighted by Patanjali in his Yoga Sutras. But the knowledge of astral travel is not limited to Indian sources only. Shockingly, Western esoteric traditions abound with the description of astral travels or out-of-body experiences, OBEs. These experiences are a central theme in esoteric traditions like Neoplatonism, the Greek traditions of Hermeticism, and the theosophy of Madame Helena Blavatsky. The earliest reference to astral travel can be found in the teachings of the philosopher Plotinus, a key figure in the Neoplatonic tradition. Plotinus, in his famous book, The Enneads, described a form of mystical ascent where the soul detaches from the material reality around it to experience higher realms of spiritual insights. The description of Plotinus influenced later esoteric traditions in the West, leading all the way up to theosophy in the 19th century, along with other occult movements. Madame Blavatsky, the founder of the Theosophical Society, popularized the idea of astral projection in her book, The Secret Doctrine. Blavatsky in this book argued that advanced spiritual practitioners could consciously choose to leave their bodies and explore the astral plane. In fact, even the controversial occultist Aleister Crowley described his own astral travels in his notebooks. However, it is unfortunately likely that his experiences were influenced by his excessive usage of drugs. Nonetheless, the point remains that the widespread description of astral travel, even in Western esoteric literature, has fueled the belief that astral travel remains possible as a result of appropriate spiritual practices. In fact, contemporary practices like lucid dreaming, shamanic journeying, as well as related beliefs in New Age spirituality can only be explained as modern developments of our previous belief in astral travel. The Yoga Sutras of Patanjali have long been believed to be an eminently practical guide to achieving certain yogic states, namely the state of samadhi or spiritual concentration. Hence, it is perhaps the most shocking discovery to find that the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali too considered astral travel to be a possibility for the advanced spiritual practitioner or yogi. Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, in its third chapter by the title of Vibhuti-pada, describes various siddhis or yogic powers, some of which relate to astral projection. For example, a few verses of the third chapter highlight the power to leave the body. The verses state as follows: by loosening of the cause of bondage and by knowledge of the passage, the mind can enter another's body. By mastery of the udana, prāna, levitation and the ability to move freely in space are obtained. Here, the Yoga Sutras provide that once the yogi, the advanced spiritual practitioner, obtains the complete control of their prāna, the life energy which is manifested outwardly in the breath, they can obtain the power of levitation, of entering another's body, as well as the ability to move freely in space or fly. The control of the prana energy allows the yogi to separate from the body consciously at will. Finally, in the fourth chapter dedicated to the explanation of yogic liberation or kaivalya, Patanjali explains that the consciousness or chitta can exist independently of the body and hence the ability for astral travel of the consciousness, which has realized its inherent separation from the body, is also implied here by Patanjali. Here we can see that while Patanjali references astral travel, his discussion of it is very meager. This limited discussion is expanded by medieval yogic texts written under the influence of Tantra. In these texts, we see a far greater discussion of the siddhis mentioned by Patanjali. For example, The Vijnana Bhairava Tantra, which we have discussed in a previous video, also accepts the possibility of astral travel. A verse in this text states as follows: by deeply meditating on oneself beyond the body, the yogi attains the state of free movement in the cosmos. Similarly, the Hatha Yoga Pradapika, another influential text of the medieval period, provides for an esoteric form of yogic practice known as Laya Yoga. In Laya Yoga, the practitioner is trained to achieve a certain degree of lightness and spread this feeling of lightness throughout their body. The final goal of Laya Yoga is to transform the ordinary human body into a divine body, where every cell is awakened with consciousness. Once this stage is reached, the practitioner also gains the ability to go beyond one's own body and travel spiritually to distant realms. Astral travel can also be understood from the perspective of Kundalini Yoga. Here, when Kundalini energy rises, the subtle body can detach and move into higher realms. In this situation, the Sahasrara Chakra or the crown chakra is often linked to the final stage of spiritual realization, where astral travel and other out-of-body experiences may take place. If one were to argue that astral travel was only believed by ancient writers and modern spiritual practitioners reject its possibility, they would be absolutely wrong. The continuing belief in astral travel among modern, highly advanced yogis can be seen in the writings of Swami Vivekananda and Sri Aurobindo. In fact, Swami Vivekananda experienced astral travel himself. In a letter to his disciple, Asalinga Perumal, Vivekananda described an out-of-body experience in which he saw himself floating above his own body. He wrote, "One day in the course of my meditation, I suddenly found my body rigid and still, and I felt as if I was soaring into space, leaving the body behind. I could see everything below me." On the basis of his own experience, Vivekananda taught a type of astral travel similar to the one found in the yogic texts and the Upanishads, which we have discussed earlier. In a lecture, Vivekananda said as follows: "By the power of yoga, one can enter another body or travel without the physical body." Similarly, Sri Aurobindo accepted the possibility of astral travel in his discussion of the different planes of the human body. While discussing the concept of the inner being and higher planes of consciousness, Sri Aurobindo saw astral travel as a part of the inner yogic journey. But he warned fellow practitioners against getting lost in lower psychic realms during their travels. In his Letters on Yoga, Sri Aurobindo cautioned one such disciple as follows: "One can become conscious of the inner self and even move out of the body in the subtle envelope. But it is important to remain in control and not be carried away into misleading experiences." He viewed such experiences as natural and spiritual evolution, but emphasized their temporary nature, as true transformation comes from integrating higher consciousness into daily life and not through such esoteric or otherworldly experiences. We may learn from Sri Aurobindo's cautionary tale and focus on our own spiritual development without getting lost in obsession with such esoteric psychic powers. What are your thoughts on astral travel? Do you think that it is possible? Let us know in the comments below.
त्वमेव बन्धुश्च